Hello everyone, welcome to today's video on solving equations with variable terms on both sides of the equation. So we've already looked at solving equations where there's one step, where there's two step, where we need to combine like terms, when we need to distribute in order to simplify the equation and then solve it. But today we're going to look at something like we have here, 5x plus 10 equals 3x minus 8. So there's variable terms on both sides of the equation. And in order to solve equations like this, when we have variables on both sides, we're going to need to add or subtract to get all the variable terms on one side of the equation and then all the constant terms on the other side of the equation. Okay, so that's going to be our strategy. And we want to keep in mind general principles of solving equations. What you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other in order to keep it balanced. And we can always check our solution to make sure we're right by substituting the value that we get our solution into the original equation, making sure we get a true equation, meaning both sides are equal, as we see happening down here. Okay, we'll look at two examples today. Our first one is pretty straightforward. We have 6x minus 10 equals 4x plus 18. So when we try to solve this equation, we're looking for a value for x that's going to make this equation true, meaning the left side of the equation and the right side of the equation is equal to each other. Okay, so the key concept here is we want to get all the variable terms on one side of the equation and then all the constant terms on the other. So right now for my variable terms, I have 6x on the left-hand side and then 4x on the right-hand side. I cannot combine those, right, because these are on different sides of the equation. They are separated. Those are not, you can't just combine them because that would be crossing the equal sign, and we can't just cross that equal sign without adding or subtracting or switching signs. So what I'm going to try to do here is I have this 4x on the right-hand side, and I'm going to just try to get all the variable terms to the left-hand side. So currently on the right-hand side, I have my 4x plus 18, and I want to get rid of that 4x. Okay, so I want to get rid of it, move all my x's to the left-hand side of the equation. So how would I get rid of 4x? Well, 4x is currently being added to 18. We want to leave 18 to be the only thing on the right-hand side. So I can undo adding 4x. Or really I want to try to make 4x get it away, so I just have 0 there instead. Okay, so I'll do what I normally do. I'll rewrite the equation, leaving some space to do stuff. And then I have 4x. Since 4x is currently being added to 18, if I subtract 4x on the right-hand side, then I can rewrite it using the commutative property of addition here. I have 4x minus 4x, right, and then plus 18. I don't need to rewrite that step, but just so we see it, then I have these like terms on the same side of the equation, which is essential. So 4x minus 4x. I do 4 minus 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. So this is just equal to 0x, but 0 times anything, so 0 times x is just 0, so this whole thing just goes away. Okay, 4x minus 4x is 0, so I've successfully gotten rid of my variable on my right-hand side, and I just get 18 here on the right. And then if I go over to the left-hand side, I have 6x minus 4x. I could rewrite that as 6x plus a negative 4x. Either way, I just have to keep that sign. So I have 6x minus 4x, and then I still keep my minus 10. 6x minus 4x, those are like terms I can combine together. Right, 6 minus 4 is 2, or 6 plus negative 4 is 2. So this is just equal to 2x, and then I bring down minus 10. Okay, so before I keep going, because I know at this stage you know how to solve this, just checking in what we did again. We started at our original situation, 6x minus 10 equals 4x plus 18, and I wanted to get rid of the 4x on the right-hand side. The only way to get rid of a positive 4x is to subtract a positive 4x, or to add a negative 4x, because those are the same thing. Okay, so when we do 4x minus 4x, then the x's go away. We can cross them out. And we just get 18 on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, when we subtract 4x, which we of course need to do in order to keep the equation balanced, I get 6x minus 4x, which is 2x. So 2x minus 10 equals 18. Okay, at this stage, this is a standard two-step equation, and I know we know how to do this. right? We think about what is currently happening to the variable, and then how do we undo that? So looking at this, I have x, it's being multiplied by 2, and then we're subtracting 10, and that gives us 18. So in order to undo it, first I'm going to add 10 to both sides, and then I'm going to divide by 2 to invert or undo the things currently happening to the variable. Okay, so 2x minus 10 equals 18. We leave some space. We add 10 to both sides. Minus 10 plus 10, that's going to undo each other and go away to 0. We just get 2x on the left equals 28 on the right. And then x is currently being multiplied by 2. We undo that by dividing by 2. And we get x equals 14. If you need any more review, once we're at this step, you should go back to my two-step equation video to watch. But the key thing for today is this move where we subtracted 4x from both sides in order to get the variable terms on one side. And then you see once we're here, we have the variable terms on one side and the constant terms on the other. All right, awesome. Great job, everyone. Let's try one more, which has some fractions and some more negatives, but the process, of course, is going to be the exact same. So I have 3x plus 1/2 equals negative 4x minus 1/4. Again, want to get all the variable terms on one side and then eventually my constants on the other. I have a negative 4x here. Normally I find it helpful if I have a negative, that's the one I try to move from that side, because then we're dealing with positives, and that's always helpful. So here I have the negative 4x. I want to get rid of that. I want to get that to 0 and be able to cancel it out. So I'm going to add a positive 4x. That is negative 4x plus positive 4x is equal to 0x, and then that's equal to 0. Okay, so I would probably, at this stage, I would just cross those out, but we could move them around to show that this is equal to negative 4x plus 4x minus 1/4, if that's helpful, and then we see these are like terms that sum to 0x. Okay, so at this stage, on my right-hand side, I get negative 1/4. I just have a constant term. And then on the left-hand side, I can't forget to add 4x, because what I do to one side of the equation, I always have to do to the other. So then here, I probably wouldn't write this middle step, but it's great if you want to for a while. 3x plus 4x equals 1/2. The commutative property of addition means I can just switch things around here. 3x plus 4x, I add those together. That is equal to 7x, and then plus 1/2. So now I'm at a basic two-step equation situation. Think about what's currently happening to the variable, and then how do I undo that? Currently, x is being multiplied by 7, and then we're adding 1/2. So I'm going to undo that by subtracting 1/2 from both sides, and then dividing by 7. So I rewrite 7x plus 1/2 equals negative 1/4, leaving some room. And like we figured out, since we're currently adding 1/2 to the x, I'm going to subtract 1/2 from both sides. On the left-hand side, this is easy. 1/2 minus 1/2 is 0, so that cancels away, and I just get 7x on the left-hand side of the equation. On the right-hand side, negative 1/4 minus 1/2. If we need a reminder there, when we're subtracting 1/2, that's the same thing as adding a negative 1/2. So this ends up being equal to negative 3/4. Okay, we could get a common denominator if we needed to in order to figure that out. And then lastly, we have x is currently being multiplied by 7, so we're going to undo that by dividing both sides by 7. Okay, so I divide by 7, and then here I would divide by 7. But that's really equal to, if we're doing this by hand, negative 3/4 divided by 7. It's going to be easier to turn that into multiplication. Dividing is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So dividing by 7 is equal to multiplying by 1/7. And then I get negative 3/28. Okay, so my solution is x equals negative 3/28. Alright, so key takeaways from this video. Our goal is always to add or subtract in order to get all the variable terms on one side of the equation. And then once we do that, we'll have a two-step equation Then we'll move all the constant terms to the right-hand side. We'll have a nice, easy one-step equation that we can solve. Okay, great job, everyone.